Hey guys, so now that we have somewhat styled our app, right, and it's actually looking nice and very similar to the one that we have on Heroku right now, which you can always go and check out. The next two things that I want to work on is to start working with React Router, which we're going to bring in. And also, I do want to show you, I think, one of the few examples that we're going to have on a functional-based component, which is somewhat different than the class-based component, which is what we've been using so far in this project. Okay, so I'm just going to close this, or actually minimize it. And the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to stop the server, because we do want to bring our React router DOM here. So for this, we just need to do give me a second, npm install React router DOM. Okay, and this is going to take a few seconds. And then once this is done, I am going to show you the version that I'm getting at the time of this recording. Remember, if you're watching in the future and you have a different version, because I mean you're out in the future, and let's say you're watching 10 months from now and they have version 6, for instance, you can try and do that one, but if for some reason it's not working as we are coding it right now, then you're probably going to want to force the installation of the version that I have here, and all you need to do is literally just add an ampersand here and then the version, which is in this case 4.3.1. Okay, so this is basically the syntax that you need to use if you want to install a very specific version. Although since I built this not long ago, I know that whatever latest version that we get from npm is just going to do the trick for us, right? Cool. So now that we have here, we're going to set up our app.js as the main routing file, or the main place where we're going to start, or we're going to be routing, performing routing from one path to the other. Okay, so let's just close some of these windows here, because it's getting really ridiculous. And what we're going to do here on app.js is that we're going to import browser router from, or as, I'm sorry, let me start with that first, from React router DOM. Okay, so this is basically what we need to bring in. And something that I learned from one of the amazing instructors that I learned React from is to give it like a shorter name, so that we can actually do this with more ease rather than typing browser router all the time. So you basically, all you need to do is type as router route and switch. Although we're not gonna use switch right now, so I'm gonna bring it later so that we don't have those warnings on our terminal. Okay, so now that we brought this in, the next step is to wrap the entire app.js, the entire return, with the router tag. So basically we're going to do this router, and this basically enables us to have specific routes in here. Okay, so this is all you need to do for now. You need to bring browser router as router and route from React router DOM, which we just npm installed, and then you need to wrap everything in app.js with this specific tag, and then we're going to use route to start creating the specific routes once we start creating them. Okay, so we're going to leave this alone for now, and we're going to go and work on our first functional component. As I mentioned, the difference between a functional component and a class-based component is that the class-based component can actually tap into lifecycle hooks and also tap into the state. With the functional component, you don't have those capabilities. You can tap into the props, which is something that I'm going to explain once we get to use it. But that's about it, right? You don't have, it's basically stateless. All right. So in our project, or actually, let's do it in our project. In our project, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call it create button.js. Actually, create project button.js. And in order to create a functional component, we're going to use this shortcut here, RFC tap. And this is going to create a functional component for us. And here, basically, I'm just going to do a little refactoring because we need to export this so we can actually import it into our dashboard and use it. So create project button, which is the name that we're going to give it. And we're just going to create here an arrow function. We're going to take the export default from here, put it down here, and then we're going to export this. Okay, cool. So again, this is basic JavaScript, basic ES6, which you're expected to know. There's nothing too specific about React in this portion right here. This is an arrow function. If you're not familiar with this, you can go ahead and do some light reading on this and perhaps practice on the side. All right. So what we want to do here is we want to extract the project button, because that way, this part here where we have it, that way won't be that cluttered, right? That way it's going to be a little cleaner to have the project button outside of here. All right. So now this is going to be an interesting one, because this is where we're going to first start using link, which is the alternative in JSX for the A tag. So we're going to wrap this in parentheses and then put this here. All right. So the first thing that we want to do is that we want to import link, which also comes from React Router DOM. So we're going to do import curly braces link from React Router DOM. Now that we have this here, we can just get rid of this, and I'm not gonna use my little trick of the Control D, and I'll show you why. Because in this case, in this very specific case, then it goes after all the A's. Then we're going to have a real mess here. Now, the other option that you have is that you put the cursor here, you hold the Alt key, Alt as in, like, I know that I have an accent, so I want to make sure that you guys, especially the native English speakers, I want to make sure that you guys can understand me. Alt key, all right? And so you basically, you stand here, and then that way you can change them both at the same time. And then here we are not using href, we're using 2. Cool. And we're gonna keep this just the same. However, when I save this, I believe this is going to fail. Actually, let me run the server. npm start. And now that we have it here, it didn't fail, but I do want to show you something else. Now, remember that it has to return JSX that it's wrapped by a parent HTML element. So in this case, I don't see the reason why cluttering this with another div. What I want to do is use something that is called react.fragment, okay? Because this way you don't have yet another div to worry about, but this still wraps it in a parent component that it's pretty much invisible to when this is actually traduced to HTML, to normal HTML for the browser to run. So in case we want to have like like more than one button in this functional component, we totally could. Okay, so I am going to point this to the add project route, and we're going to enable this very soon. Don't worry about it. And I'm actually going to get rid of the href here because we don't need this anymore. Cool. So now that we have this, let's go ahead and enable us going into this route. So here in project, we're going to create a new component, a new class-based component that is called add project.js. And this one is going to be a class-based component. You already know the drill. And we're going to do our initial refactor. I promise you, once we start working with some other things, you're going to see why this is so much better, at least in my humble opinion. And then we're going to do a quick H1 here, add project form. Okay, so now we have two things that we needed to have in place before we start playing with our routes. The first one is we have our project, our functional component for our create project button, which, by the way, we need to bring here from where we got it from. And basically what we're going to do here is just, again, create project button, and I'm just going to auto import it. And if you don't have the auto import, remember you have to type this by hand. Okay, so now that we have that, then we need to go to our app.js file and create our very first route. Okay, so here what we're going to do is that we're going to use the route tag. Literally, we're going to call it route. Close it here. And then what we're going to pass on to a route tag is the path where we want this to go, which we already declared is going to be add project. And I'm just going to copy and paste it. I don't want to leave anything to chance. And then we have to declare the component, and this is actually with lowercase c, the component that we want to bring up whenever we hit this route. This is very straightforward. This is a routing function right here. Basically the path and the component that we want to bring up, which in this case is add project. And again, I'm doing my auto import, okay, right here. If you don't have this, you have to type this down on your own. Okay, so one thing that I learned when I was learning React is that when you're using router DOM, this could get problematic. Why? Because it could actually take ambiguous routes, or basically, you know, it just gets messy. I don't know how to really explain it, but it just it takes ambiguous paths. Basically, anything that has a slash in front of it, it could direct you to it. So I never really experienced this because, and I've never really tried it. Actually, why don't we do that now? Because the way I understand it is that this could take you to ambiguous routes, and it could create problems for you down the line. And as you can see here, it just loaded the project form component right here, and I don't think we want that. We actually want to go to a different route. So what you want to do here is use the keyword exact, and when you do exact path, basically it's just going to take you to the add project component. Okay, so I am going to make sure that everything is nice and clean here, and then the add project form. Right, so I'm just going to stop the server and restart it. Just a sec. And it's actually giving me a really weird behavior here, because it's just displaying this component right here rather than actually taking us to a different route, right? And it's actually displaying the whole thing, and I'm not really sure why is that. Although actually I think I know why now. And what's happening here is, again, that ambiguous routing, because right now we're loading our dashboard component in basically any in basically anything that gets rendered with the app.js. So this means that in order to clean this ugly thing up, let me just show it to you again. So we have this here, and then if we go to create project, it takes us to the form, but it keeps this one here because right now we don't have a route for our dashboard, which we are also going to do. So we're just gonna copy paste this here, and we're gonna call this dashboard, and then we're going to point it to our dashboard component, and this should take care of this. And now there you have it. So if we go to dashboard, we see our dashboard, and when we go to a create project component or a create project button, when we click on it, it takes us to the component that will have the form in the future. Okay, so I just want to leave things here because I don't like having lengthy lessons. So I'm just gonna stop the video now, and we are gonna continue wiring this up in the next one.